In today's video, we'll delve into the lore and 3 distinct builds for another immersive NPC build guide for the Banished Knight from Elden Ring. Banished Knights first caught the attention in the original game trailer and are exiled noble warriors. Unlike the Vagabond starter class, they are likely an order or institution, as we see by their coat of arms seen on shields and unaltered armor. They are encountered in various locations like Stormvale, Castle Sol, Castle Morn, and Ionia, and are often mistaken for being storm-related due to their presence in Stormvale. But instead, the storm relation is specific to Stormvale Knights. Some, like Edgar of Castle Morn, use different tactics, not related to storms or ice. The Banished Knights' presence in strategic locations shows us that they might be mercenaries or just roaming knights. An example of this would be their employment by individuals like Godric the Grafted. They possess refined armaments and unique fighting techniques, making them quite the formidable opponent. We theorize that many Banished Knights could also be tarnished since they fit the description of exiled warriors. What's curious is their connection to dragons that is hinted at on their armor with dragon motifs and incantations, although some, like Edgar, don't display these traits. In summary, Banished Knights are a powerful, widespread group of exiled warriors with a complex background and today's focus for another immersive NPC build. Banished Knights can be found scattered all over the lands between. For farming, the easiest, in my opinion, is in Caelid's Cathedral of Dragon Communion. Here you can sneak up with this one right next to the Grace and open with a crit, making this an easy, repeatable farm even at early game. And considering that this armor is one of the stronger armor sets in the game, it's not half bad of an idea to farm this early on if you can manage the fight. You can reset after you killed this one, or you can sneak around and attack the other knight that stands near the cliffs to the west. Note that these mobs drop the unaltered helms with the red hood, both altered and unaltered armor, and also the greaves, gauntlets, greatsword, and shield. The armor is all about a 3% drop rate, and the weapons / shield is about 4%. If you farm these mobs, all that is left is the altered helm, found just down the stairs next to the Rampart Tower site of Grace. From this direction, you can sneak behind this Banished Knight and open with a crit for another easy farming location. And then the Halberd, which is actually one of the better early game weapons since you can obtain a +8 Banished Knight's Halberd quickly by killing Edgar in Castle Morn. If you don't want to spoil the questline, you can obtain this later on when he invades you at the Revenger's Shack in Liurnia as Edgar the Revenger. This is our progression for allocating our attributes for this build, prioritizing vigor, endurance, and strength. We have 3 builds for you today: dual-wielding greatswords, two-handing the Halberd, and the classic sword and board. As we learn in the lore, these knights can use various abilities, so you can do with that what you will. For the dual-wielding build, we set our weapons to quality since we have both our strength and dex maxed out. Otherwise, we'd recommend you set to heavy for strength scaling. We decided to go with the Storm Knight abilities for this build since it felt the most immersive, and threw Stormcaller on one greatsword and Storm Blade on the other, providing a mix of sweeping AoE strikes or a potent range shot if needed. Our talismans include the Rotten Sword Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, which can be used to max out dex a little sooner, Shard of Alexander, and the Green Turtle Talisman. The Stone Barb Crack Tier and the Thorny Crack Tier combo in your Physic offer a powerful buff, strong enough to wipe out most bosses in seconds. The combination of high damage output, single target AoE, the ranged option, and the bolstered armor translates to a mighty force to be reckoned with. There's something special about halberds in this game. The reach and the weapon art are unmatched in my opinion, and the Banished Knight's Halberd is just that. This weapon mainly deals pierce damage, making it strong against mounted enemies, but can also deal slash damage. We put Storm Assault on this weapon with quality scaling and had pretty much the same talismans as our dual-wielding build, with the exception that the Spear Talisman comes in handy here due to the pierce damage. For the counterattack mentioned on the Spear Talisman to work, you just need to be hitting your opponent with a piercing attack while they are performing an attack against you. Storm Assault is a 2-phase attack. The first being the initial wind AoE that deals a small amount of damage, but also poise break, and the second being the stronger portion that slams the weapon down. This means that enemies with weak poise can be staggered with the first phase of attack and devastated with the follow-up. Last up, we have the classic sword and board, but alternatively, you can swap out the sword for that lovely halberd if you please. For this build, we put the Storm Wall Ash of War on the Banished Knight's shield and Royal Knight's Resolve on the main hand. Alternatively, you can set the shield for no skill so that Royal Knight's Resolve is much easier to keep up. Royal Knight's Resolve will buff your weapon for any attack, but you only get 1 hit before having to reapply. Therefore, we use this for charge attacks and guard counters. If you're using parries with Storm Wall, the Ash of War won't be as much of a focus. focus. You can use it to buff your crit after parrying an attack, but you typically don't have the time. Storm Wall is more than a parry though, as it knocks projectiles like arrows right out of the air. This is very challenging to do, and though it is epic in theory, I wouldn't recommend it since blocking or dodging would be a much easier form of damage mitigation. Also, this Ash of War can't be spammed fast enough to reflect a barrage of arrows, rendering Storm Wall's niche ability useless in most contexts. With guard counters comes different talismans. We use the Curved Sword Talisman, Great Shield Talisman, Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, and the Green Turtle Talisman. With this combination, you will be virtually indestructible in open world scenarios and very tanky for most bosses. However, a sword and board is not often potent against late game or new game plus bosses due to the lack of high damage output and blocking not having as good of an effect, because there's just some hits that you can't block no matter what. Alternatively, if you are going for parries and crits, I'd recommend the Assassin's Crimson Dagger and Dagger Talisman for a huge bonus to your critical attacks. We appreciate you checking out another one of our build guides, and if you have any requests for future guides or videos, shoot us a comment below. We'd also love to hear how you'd make your immersive Banished Knight build. For more things Elden Ring, consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.